Philadelphia, are you ready?
They said, are you ready?
This is Brotherly Love Wrestling Podcast, your first stop for everything professional wrestling. So sit back and enjoy wrestling talk at its finest with your hosts, Larry Hall and Joe Corrado.
My name is Dwayne Han. I'm 43 years old, and I'm from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I've always been a huge fan of professional wrestling. When I was a kid, my brother and I, we would paint our faces up like different wrestlers and have our little own backyard wrestling shows. But as I got older, I realized I wasn't a very athletic guy, and my dream to be a world-class wrestler went away. So I created No Contact Wrestling in order to keep wrestling alive in my life. The storytelling, the characters, and best of all, the trash talking. Are you ready, baby? Tonight, I'm gonna smack talk the judges into submission. Go show them what you got! This is a golden opportunity to be discovered by the world and show America that No Contact Wrestling is not going anywhere.
Hello. What's your name?
My name is Delicious Duane Douglas.
Delicious.
That's right.
And what are you going to be doing for us?
I am a no-contact professional wrestler.
No contact
No
professional
contact.
wrestler.
That's right.
And you make a living doing it? What do you do for a job?
For a job, I'm a legal clerk at the courts.
Do the people at the courts know that you do
Yes,
this?
they love it.
Do you think you can win this?
Absolutely. I saw a psychic. She told me I'd win this. I already won it. You don't even know it yet.
You think you could take the $1 million prize?
$1 million prize? $1 million is a drop in the bucket for me, big guy.
Whoa! Talking smack.
Okay, good luck.
All right. What's up, Hollywood? It's Delicious Duane Douglas, the greatest no-contact wrestler of all time. And I'm here at America's Got Talent to win it all. But first, let's give it up for Terry Crews. Terry Crews is the second most intimidating man on this stage today. Because the first is this guy, Delicious Duane Douglas. Handsome Howie Mandel. You would be perfect for no-contact professional wrestling. I'm about to offer you the highly coveted spot as my no-contact tag team partner. So when you're ready to change careers, you come see me. Hot stuff Heidi Klum. Girl, look at all this. How have I not been invited to one of your Halloween parties yet? I don't know. I'm starting to feel a little snub. Stunning Sofia Vergara. You look incredible. I happen to be a fashion guru myself and one of the most handsome men on the planet. I'm thinking, why don't you have your people call my people and let's do lunch. And you. All the tight t-shirts in the world can't save you from me, Simon. When I'm done with you, you're gonna wish you were riding that electric bike again. America's Got Talent. I got talent.
You know, there are people out there who question whether professional wrestling is real. And I'm here to tell you as a witness, this was absolutely 100% real bad.
You don't even know what good stuff is. You don't even know, you jabronis.
Sophia, what did you think?
There was nothing delicious about that.
Forget you all. I'm amazing.
Heidi, what'd you think?
Yeah, that's right. Boo me, baby.
You guys are not going loud enough.
Boo. Who do you think you are?
Boo!
I'm the best.
Simon, what did you think?
I think you won the crowd over.
That's right. I sure did.
They hate you.
That's all right. I love me. That's all that matters.
He's the heel of this crowd right now.
Let's vote. It's a no from me.
This is wrong!
It's a no for me.
Forget you all!
No.
I would have said yes.
That's right, because I'm the greatest!
Can't say yes. You already said no.
Welcome, everybody, to Brotherly Love Wrestling, and on today's show, as you may have seen if you're watching on YouTube, the clip from America's Got Talent. If you're listening, then you haven't seen it, and you can meet our guest now. He is the Delicious Duane. Give it to me, Duane.
Delicious Duane Douglas, the first dream, the greatest no-contact wrestler of all time, the icon of isolation, Delicious Duane Douglas.
Duane, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, you guys. I appreciate it.
All right,
Absolutely.
all right, Delicious Duane. I was looking through the interweb and I was trying to get some backstory on who we were interviewing and what was going on with this interview tonight, and I saw that it was actually picked up by the New York Times or the Times of some sort, saying that.
Was it?
I don't know.
I don't even know who picks up what, you know.
But they said friends start. What was the terminology? The
It was
quarantine.
a no-contact wrestling organization. Yeah. So it started, I think, within like the first couple weeks of COVID with a couple guys in New York. One guy, Casey Hopkins, and another guy, Jimmy Riddle, who lives over in the UK. So what happened was they had known each other prior because they're musicians up in New York and like Brooklyn and like that area. And they created the Isolation Wrestling Federation on Instagram. And in the early days of COVID, when we were all locked inside our houses and we were, we didn't have our jobs or anything like that, there was no sports. Wrestling was still kind of figuring out what they were doing at that point. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody was kind of really figuring out what they were doing. And these guys came up with the Isolation Wrestling Federation. I found it through Casanova Valentine, who I followed on Instagram, who's a deathmatch wrestler. And Cass was doing promos with them, and I saw him doing it, and I was like, "Oh wow!" I was in the Jeep with my roommate, and I was like, "I think I'm gonna start cutting wrestling promos. I'm gonna buy green screen, stupid outfit. I'm just gonna give him like 1980 shit." And then I found the IWS, and it felt like destiny. And it was just like I'd already ordered the shit from Amazon, like the jacket and the glasses and everything like that, and I found the IWS. And it was like, oh my God, these guys all have the same idea that I had. And like together as like a group, we've put together, like, I think there's like 12 hours of content. Mick Foley's done stuff with us. He originally started as a cameo and then stayed. And he was just like, I love what you guys are doing. Like you guys are the spirit of professional wrestling, even though there's really no wrestling involved. It's all that, like, I've always kind of compared it to that Southpaw wrestling.
Yeah.
That they had done. Yeah. And to me, it was always like in the spirit of Southpaw wrestling. It was always kind of like we're all these wacky characters that talk shit to each other, and then we have a vote in the Instagram stories, and then we let the audience decide on who they want to win.
All right, Larry. I got two questions have arise, or one statement, one question has arise from this.
Go ahead.
Duane, you're so Philly that you didn't even ask us if you could curse on this. You just said, I'm going to do it anyway.
I'm so sorry. I didn't even think.
No, you're good. You're fine.
Every other person that we've had on has been like, oh, am I allowed to curse? Oh, am I allowed to cuss? And you just said, nope, I'm from Philly. I'll do whatever the fuck I want.
Yeah, it's kind of, it just happens, man. Yeah. I did it in front of my grandmother earlier, and I was like, oh, I'm so sorry, my mom.
Also very Philly.
Yes, my mom, absolutely.
Yeah. I was like, oh shit, I'm sorry.
So here's where my question comes. Now, what made you think that all you guys doing this together, that someone had the idea, or whoever had the idea, I don't know if it was you or anybody else, we need to get some notoriety. We'll take this to America's Got Talent.
They came to me in January. What happened was Wes Borland from Limp Bizkit found us right before Christmas. The guitar player of Limp Bizkit wanted to play.
Yeah.
So he created a character called the Space Trucker. and Wes Borland like joined the group. So we all rallied together and we were all battling the big famous guy from Limp Bizkit, Wes Borland. And I think from that, Delicious Duane Douglas got noticed. And that's when I was contacted by a producer from America's Got Talent and was like, hey, do you want to take this character to America's Got Talent? And initially I was like, no. Because like of all the people in the IWF, and there's a pretty decent roster of people doing the content, Triple D's probably the wildest of the characters. You know what I mean? It's the Speedo, it's the fishnets, it's a crazy presentation. He's loud and screamy, and he's a sleaze bag and stuff like that. So bringing that kind of heel to America's Got Talent was kind of like foreign. So initially I was like, nah, I don't know about that. And they were like, well, we just want you to insult the judges. Can you do that? And I was like, well, yeah, I think so. But what they did was, normally when I do a Triple D promo, we throw the camera on and I'll just run some stuff. And they wanted a pre-written promo and stuff like that, where I had standards and practices, network television. So I had to like pre-write a thing. So I ended up writing out this like 4-minute thing and then passing it through a comedian friend and then through some other friends, and I had it written by committee. And then the idea was kind of to go out there and tank and go heel on the judges and kind of give this arc of a guy that's earnestly trying to go out there and, you know, win it all with this no contact wrestling. And I'm going to cut this babyface promo, and they're not going to like it because they're a bunch of bored rich weirdos. And they hated it. And it just kind of played out perfectly.
I gotta say,
I want it failing.
I gotta say, so it came on the screen, and the first time you see you, and for those who are watching saw this before the show, you're screaming and you're running back and forth past the camera, and my first instinct was, oh man, what is this guy gonna do? And then you start to speak, and one of the first words out of your mouth is, I'm from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And I was like, oh man, of course you are.
Yeah, of course I
like,
am.
of course you're from Philly.
Right.
But you come out, and like you said, and you just cut down the judges. And honestly, I was dying. I thought it was great. I thought it was really funny. I knew where you were going with it, but like it was just like, I thought it was great. And I remember as soon as it was over, I looked at my wife and I was like, I think I'm going to get this guy on the show. Like, I gotta call Joe, and I gotta talk to Joe and be like, hey, I'm just to let you know, I'm messaging this guy. I just saw him on America's Got Talent. You have to see this. And it was really funny. Like you said, it was old school heel. Like, it was great.
Right. And you know what it was everything, because of the way they shoot, everything's like out of segment and everything like that, because that's reality television. What really sucked is Terry Crews really got it.
Yeah.
And like when I came up with Terry, I was all, "What's up, Terry?" And I was all hyping shit because that's kind of the character. And Terry was really into it. Like once I was like, I'm a no contact wrestler. I'm the best parts of wrestling without any wrestling. And Terry was like, I love it, man. I love your energy. And it was like, I really hope that stuff had made television. But you know, that was kind of my first experience of like doing shit, like making content with somebody and kind of just, there you go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You guys get to go do something with it. And normally I gyrate in front of a green screen in my room and edit everything on my iPhone and everything. And to have that experience of not doing it in my room. And my first time doing it live is in front of Simon Cowell and Heidi Klum and Howie Mandel and stuff was just a whole other experience. So yeah, it was all really this kind of thing where it was all surreal.
Yeah.
It was like I couldn't believe that this stupid character had gotten this far.
Like,
you know?
I remember I saw it as I was coming home. My wife had it on, and I looked at it, and her first thing is this you in 10 years? That's what she said to me. I said in 10 years, I mean, that's kind of me now.
It's kind of now, right? You know, like
that's kind of me now. I mean, let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. And then I was watching it, and I was like, oh, man, I was like, no one gets it. Like, no, like, I felt like nobody got it. And I was like, man, I get what he's trying to do. And I feel like you're doing it in front of the wrong crowd. Like, it was like, it was cool because you got it out there, but you're like, man, this is really the wrong crowd for this.
It's
like this should be in front of like, this should be in fucking ECW arena, and this should be done in front of that crowd, because that would have been like, at least they're booing and they know what they're booing.
Right.
These people are booing because they don't know what's going on. They don't like it.
Exactly.
You're supposed to be booing, but you're supposed to be booing for the right reasons.
Okay, it's a I don't know how much I'm allowed to talk about it, like post and everything, so I don't want to say too much or anything like that. But like, okay, the boos were just
filter them in.
A level of they filter them in, and it's loud. Where like you can't even hear yourself talking over that Phil Spector wall of sound of just wham. And at first it kind of like shakes you a little bit, and you're like, what? Holy shit. And then the night before was Joey Janela's Spring Break. So when I taped it, I'd watched Spring Break. I watched RSP come out there and get middle fingers all in his face. And I was just like, do the RSP thing. You're a heel. They're just bored rich weirdos. That's all they are. You know what I mean? Like, that's all it comes down to. And like when I got to see them like in person, it was like, oh yeah. You know, like Heidi Klum's a wall of makeup on her face and stuff like that. It's like Sofia Vergara's a wall of makeup on her face. The butt isn't as nice as I thought the butt was going to be in person. You know what I mean? It was like, shit. You know, I've been lied to by the television, surprisingly enough. You know,
you can't do that, because you can't give up hope for all the other people that have yet to meet her and think that this is all fantasy.
Exactly.
You're killing 14-year-old dreams right now.
Dreams everywhere, you know, even 30-year-old, you know, incels all over the place. You're ruining it. You know, that's my cougar fetish right there.
So, Duane, you said about no contact wrestling, which is pretty. I mean, it sounds like it should be pretty obvious, but it's genius in the same time. Like, you know what I mean? For someone to not already have come up with this.
Right. I say to Casey all the time, I'm like, you're this mad genius because you came up with this kind of weird self-sustaining wrestling league, because anybody can join. Mm-hmm. You can join the IWF. You can join the IWF. Every listener of the show today can join the IWF by just creating a wrestling character, dropping a 60-second promo, and tagging Isolation Wrestling Federation. And now you're an Isolation Wrestler. And it's that easy. You know what I mean? And you get to fulfill a dream of, like, if you've ever wanted to, like, cut that wrestling promo. Or, like, I like the head of the table gimmick now. But for years, I had to endure Roman Reigns, and Roman can't talk. You know, Roman's got Paul Heyman next to him now, and it's kind of a different story. But before that happened, you know, Roman. So, like, I felt as though sitting there watching the product, I could talk better than a lot of these guys. And if I had muscles and athleticism, I could be a professional wrestler. You know, and that's kind of what the IWF is. You know. You don't have to take the bumps. You just talk the shit.
You know what's funny is that it's not like you have a lot of good like promos that you're allowed to write yourself that are going on in wrestling right now. So it's kind of ingenious in that, like, if you get someone that's good enough, and look, I mean, anybody could be out doing a wrestling promo and they could be shit. But I mean, if you get a couple people that actually like, because there's more passion behind it. It's not written by someone else and you have to say what someone else is writing. You get to come up with it yourself. So, I mean, it's like, this is perfect because you get your promo fix. I mean, you get storylines, but there's no ending.
Right. You know, like, what was it? The WWE just hired the comedy writer and everything, and she went on like a podcast and was like, "Oh, I don't know nobody's name, and I don't know nothing about wrestling at all." And it's like, wow, you just made a giant corporation look stupid. You know what I mean? Because you went on a public forum and said all this, and it shows how out of touch the WWE is with the actual wrestling fan. You know what I mean? I mean, especially when it comes to their main shows, the blue and the red product. You know, like NXT, hit or miss, Only because I watch a lot of guys come up from the indies and go into NXT, and that kind of, happens. But for the most part, like when they go up to the main show, they end up like Keith Lee or something like that. And it's like, what's going on there,
Well, I mean, we've talked to so many people about this, and that, like, not just fans, but wrestlers in general. It's almost like the WWE is that they've made this mistake in the past where someone can be larger than
the WWE. Right. Nobody
Yeah.
can be larger than the product now. Right.
Mhm.
Everybody gets stifled.
So everyone says about
Zack Ryder's a good example of that.
Yeah, exactly. It's this whole glass ceiling and who can shatter the glass ceiling, but the ceiling's so high that nobody's going to be able to touch it.
Yeah, it's impossible now.
And the people that you think could do it will never get that full opportunity, at least in the WWE. But I don't even think in AEW either. I think that there's a glass ceiling that's high, and they don't want you to get bigger than their product either. As much as they want you to believe that they're the alternative and whatnot. Yeah, they're an alternative style and production and way that they do a couple things, but when it comes down to it, it's still the really conservative guy that runs part of your company that does it this old school way as well.
Right. They're not willing to take chances. Like, not big chances, I feel like.
But you mentioned Zack Ryder. We were talking a little bit before we jumped on, mainly because we didn't want to talk about everything before we went on to the podcast, but you mentioned Zack Ryder, and Zack Ryder is now working as kind of like freelance. He's an independent wrestler, I guess, now.
Right.
And he's not Zack Ryder anymore.
Matt Cardona,
and he put himself in, I mean, he's high profile himself, but he put himself in probably the most high profile independent wrestler going right now, at least on the East Coast, in Nick Gage, and a completely different style or company that he's used to working for.
Right.
And we were talking about storylines and cutting promos and whatnot. It's fun to see Zack Ryder, aka Matt Cardona, out doing his own thing.
It's amazing. It's reminiscent of like Cody Rhodes a couple years back when like Cody Rhodes got released from the WWE and was kind of out there doing his own thing, and before he got hooked up with the Bucks and Kenny and stuff like that. It's Matt Cardona surprisingly positioning himself through Twitter in a match with Nick Gage, and it's like as soon as they announced tickets, I was like, oh, front row. Front row for that. Like I are they going to use tubes? I mean, like, are they going to do glass? Like,
that's where it's the great mystery, and it's must see no matter what, because you have to guess of what they're going to do. You would assume that Nick Gage being involved, that there's going to be something.
It's going to be violent.
And if Matt Cardona has the itch to do something completely different, then, I mean, this is
the place to do it.
Yeah, this is the platform that you want, one of the biggest in the independents today. And then you have the perfect contrast and opponent. You have the internet champion who could get over anything on the internet.
Right.
I mean, it's like perfect storm here.
It's great. It really is. Like, they even sent out like a tweet, I think like a couple weeks back, and they told everyone, oh, go out and buy a ski mask. So this way, when Nick Gage comes out, everybody looks like a giant gang, and you bet your boy ran right out, got a ski mask. Because, we got to represent, that Nick Gage stuff and everything. Like, I'll tell you what, he does feel like a main event. Like when you go and see GCW shows, and it's the whole mosh pit and everything that comes with the character when he comes out of that curtain, it really does feel like this whole raw type of energy that comes with Nick Gage.
Yeah, we've been to a couple GCW events, more than a couple, but you're right, it's a whole nother experience when that music hits and Nick Gage walks through the curtain. You're right. It's like one of those things where you have to experience. And if you haven't, you have to, because like, it's no joke, whether you like Nick Gage or you don't even like deathmatch wrestling. It's an experience to be in the crowd when Nick Gage comes out.
Right.
You know why that is? Because you don't get that anymore. If you go to main show wrestling, you don't get that wild crowd atmosphere where you're going to be over the top, and it's not forced. by no stretch of the imagination.
Right.
When you're there in the moment, you're partaking in either the eruption of cheers or you're just one of those other schmucks that are booing. But
right.
But you're involved in it. When he comes out, you have no choice but to feel something.
Yep.
You partake. I took my roommate's 2 little girls to the Tournament of Survival 6 over the weekend, which was not over the weekend, a couple like last month, which was a deathmatch tournament.
Yeah.
And I got the kids in the pit and everything with like Nick Gage and got them a moment where like he got down on the knee and like the girl shoved him and everything. And it was like this great moment of like, even like Nick Gage can even connect to children in that kind of sense. And it is like that dark side of the ring where Mox said, Vince McMahon would kill for a guy like this. But at the same time, they snuff out guys like that. You know what I mean? And it's that double-edged sword. And I think that's what we're going to get largely with wrestling. I know maybe when they sell it and we get some fresh blood in it, but I don't think mainstream wrestling's ever going to be like what we enjoyed as younger guys. Especially like I came from the Attitude Era,
us too,
CW and stuff like that, and I don't think we're ever going to get that again from mainstream wrestling.
No, as much as you want it to happen, it doesn't look like it ever will. I mean, it's just that the times have changed. I mean, right. I think that, and no one has really tapped into what the current time is. Like, it's always changing. I feel like every day something new or. It's just there's no consistency in this era for anything. Like attention span isn't there. Like people don't really want to be sitting there for 1 hour, let alone 3 hours to watch
3 hours
TV. Like if wrestling did like 5 30-minute shows a week, like I think that would like do wonders for it somehow.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You're right.
We live in a world where kids ingest content in 15-second TikTok videos.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like that's how fast it is. You know what I mean? Like
that's how my wife learns everyday news is TikTok.
Right, through TikTok. Right.
Yes.
So it's that speed of that. That's where they gotta hit. They gotta hit so fast. And it is like largely like how I follow like a lot of wrestling through clips. You know what I mean? Like I follow it through these clips and everything like every week where it's like, oh, I this clip interests me. I'm going to go to the YouTube page and watch the full video at that point. And
it all brings us back to the no contact wrestling of where you're doing it at 1 to 2 minute clips and you're getting everything that you need and you can understand it and get it there like that. Like you understand, person A is mad at person B. Well, let's see how this plays out in 2 minutes.
That's exactly what it delivers. It delivers the simple basics of. That's what 1980s wrestling kind of was. It
wasn't overproduced. It wasn't
overproduced. Right. It wasn't backstage drama. It was, I don't like you. You don't like me. We're gonna have some words, and I'm gonna see you Friday night at the auditorium. At the Civic Center at 8:00, in a bull rope match or whatever, and that's kind of the inspiration. Like I would come up with like the House of 1,000 White Claws. We're gonna battle on the House of 1,000 White Claws, and it was just some stupid idea of like, let's come up with a gimmick match, and we don't even have like a real gimmick because it's all dumb videos. And like he even says it, like my opponent says it, he's like, I don't even know what that is. You know what I mean? But like I'll do it anyway, and it's that kind of fun stuff. And I love the name calling aspects. I love hearing the variations of disgusting Duane Douglas, douchebag Duane Douglas, dopey Duane Douglas, like all the different, like I had a super cut of all the name calling that took place and stuff like that. And it's so much fun when new IWF wrestlers come on the scene. I'm kind of that guy that's like, oh, I'll battle you, because you can battle Triple D and you can kick my ass. It'll look great. You know what I mean? Because nobody likes me. And you can just kick my ass and get a free win and then get like a little bit of confidence in your videos at that point. And basically I'll put you over and get you started, because I think that's an important thing. Like you come to the IWF, you come to the Isolation Wrestling Federation on Instagram, and you drop a 60-second intro video, and then you pick out an opponent, or an opponent picks you, and you call them out, and you're like, I don't like your face. or I don't like whatever you do, and they're going to answer you and be like, well, I don't like your face in a creative manner. And that's the fun aspect of it, is that you start to build a character in that kind of regard, where like you're building your own wrestling personality character. My character was, he's 150 pounds, but he thinks he's Rick Rude. You know what I mean? Like, he thinks he looks like Rick Rude, and those kind of wrestlers. And Triple D is definitely a mixture of a couple different like guys throughout history that I've kind of just mashed together and made this kind of, you know, kind of character that was loud and abrasive, because that's what wrestling was. I was kind of always reminded of this old Ren and Stimpy cartoon where Ren and Stimpy were wrestlers. And Stimpy's like, I want to scream the loud, funny words. And it was like, I like him and he likes me. And I'm like, that's what I try to do with Triple D, is I want to yell the loud words because that's what wrestling is. And I'm sorry for yelling.
You're good.
And
You apologize for yelling, but not for cursing.
Not for cursing. Yelling's a whole other thing. Foul language just comes with Philly.
So speaking of that, I did want to ask you, what part of the city are you from?
South.
Okay, you're from South Philly? Okay.
That would have been the easiest of guesses.
Probably, yeah.
Right. I used to, my second job was the Boston Market right by the ECW arena.
Oh, okay.
So like I used to give Fonzie free food and stuff like that. And he would give me these index cards, and they would just have an ECW stamp. And he'd be like, you just give him at the door, kid. And I'd be like, you know, like you want a meatloaf carver, Fonz? I'll give you whatever you want, man. And he'd be like, just get this card at the door and they'll let you right in. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. So like, you know, Fonzie would come in, just incredible, and guys like Stevie Richards and stuff like that used to come in the Boston Market when I was a kid. And they would here's free food, man, because I'm a mark. I'm 17 years old at a Boston Market. You know, 17, 18 years old at that time. Like, oh my God, you guys are in my store. So it's like, yeah. So like, yeah, South Philly.
Nice. That's awesome. So we did talk about if you watch current product or not, and you said that AEW you're into a little bit. You watch clips with the bigger shows.
I love watching the head of the table stuff. Like I think Roman Reigns is compelling right now under the tutelage of Mr. Paul Heyman. You know, It's very clear that Paul Heyman's hand is in all of this Jimmy Uso stuff and everything, and he's doing some that quiet Jake the Snake style of stuff where I think he's flourished without an audience.
Yeah.
Without having a crowd, there's allowed Roman Reigns to really kind of rise up and finally become the heel that we all knew he could be.
Well, but here's the thing that I'm questioning, and I actually just thought about it watching or finally catching up on SmackDown from Friday night. I'm watching it, and I'm hearing the "You suck" chant that they're piping in and stuff like that. I'm going, is he going to get that reaction? Like next Friday night when they go live with a crowd in Houston, is he going to really get that reaction? Or is everyone going to be shocked and he's just going to be completely cheered because they know that WWE wants us to boo him? Are we now going to accept him and cheer him? Like, is he going to get that reaction? I hope he does, but I don't know.
Yeah, I expect a hot crowd.
Yeah.
You know, it's the first wrestling show, like maybe even like night after WrestleMania type levels of just, you know, hot crowd.
Yeah.
That's probably like worth watching, kind of like the AEW show, like with, you know, the Hangman Fox. You know what I mean? Like that's great. You know what I mean? Like I love stuff like that. Like you can't control the crowd, and the crowd is such an important element of pro wrestling, and it's been sadly missed throughout all this, you know, through the pandemic and everything through the last year and a half. So like, I'm also curious as to will they cheer the head at the table because he's been compelling television. Yeah. And I think he hits what was it like? Oh, hey Jay, you know, and he's like, "Oos, I'm Jimmy," and he's like, "It's all the same." And it's damn, like, this is good shit. You know what I mean? Like he's doing some of the best stuff of his career right now. And you're right. That you bring up a great point of will they boo him or will they cheer Roman Reigns?
I think the only thing he's got, or the one thing he's got going for him right now, is that he's up against Edge, and I think that the crowd's going to want to cheer him so much that they will boo Roman.
They will boo Roman.
that's why you do it at this time. I mean, you get who's the most popular person? Edge.
Right.
Who's the most recognizable through multiple generations? Edge.
Mm-hmm.
So people are going to cheer Edge. I mean, although Edge is not to be, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but Edge is edgy right now. So not to be too corny.
Well, right. He's cool healing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, he's not necessarily a full baby face.
No.
You know? Like, he's kind of terrorizing them all, which is like a good angle. You know?
He's like the anti-hero.
Yeah, he's like an anti-hero, like that cool piece to heal.
Yeah.
Know?
He's a vigilante right now.
Exactly. And then it's like an AEW. Like I'm not even really sure what they're doing over there.
There's
like,
no clear.
It's the Omega stuff. Like, it's just Omega, and now they have facial hair. And it's like, oh, this is great. You know what I mean? You guys got facial hair.
Are you a fan of Kenny Omega or no?
I'm a fan of Kenny Omega in Japan. And then Kenny Omega came to America and he thought he was over, and he wasn't. You know, like, it was kind of like, you know, that style works over there, you know, but it's not, like, it doesn't really translate well here, I feel like.
Larry, what have I been telling you these, how many weeks have we been doing this now? Like, how many times have I had to tell you the same exact thing?
Look,
awesome in Japan.
the way that Dwayne started to say that, I could feel the dislike for Kenny Omega, which is I wanted to lead into it because I knew he was going to agree with you, Joe, just by his tone.
Here's the thing: when you bring it over and you're on TV weekly, like, we didn't see him weekly over here unless you're watching like old stuff. If you can't get me invested to watch, you can wrestle great, but let me tell you, freaking AEW doesn't have that many great wrestlers. They haven't already wrestled, or B, that you're going to be able to have Okada level matches with.
Right.
It's just not. It's just not going to happen. Even if you could, that's what 4 months.
He doesn't.
You have to be able to talk your matches up. You have to be able to talk people into wanting to actually watch your story play out.
Right. They teamed him up with the Dollar Store, Paul Heyman and Don Callis. You know what I mean?
Ooh, that's a little rough. I mean, Don Callis is a little better than a dollar.
Like, it's that Carney kind of vibe. Like, he can talk. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, Don Callis is great, and he brings the Carney vibe that Kenny as a heel needs, because Kenny can't do that alone.
No.
I think that's kind of the thing that, like, Don Callis has been carrying Kenny throughout this whole belt collector angle.
Yeah.
Which was intriguing initially, and then fizzled really quick. And it was just like, wow, this is really awesome, but, like, it didn't do anything for Impact.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
They did this with Austin Aries when he got let go from WWE. And
right.
Austin Aries became the belt collector, and it's cool, but I mean, you know, you're eventually going to lose him, and you're not doing anything to help anybody out besides yourself.
Exactly. It's not making Impact look good. And that was kind of like my thing. Like the Cody Rhodes burial tour. When Cody Rhodes was the TNT champion, bringing in indie guys to just crush him. And it was like, oh, we're going to bring in Warhorse to squash him. It was kind of like, you know. Like,
yeah, but Eddie Kingston got a job because of that tour.
Kingston did get a job because of that.
Yeah.
You know? But, like, that is Eddie Kingston, I feel like. Largely was able to transcend that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All Eddie Kingston ever needed was the audience, and he was going to do it.
That was it, man. He's so good.
Yep.
Like, I remember heckling at an old show once, like, years ago in the early 2000s, and he threatened me. And I was all like, what? Like, I'm sorry. Like it was just like one of those moments where it's like, you say another word, man, and I'm going to hurt you. And it was just like, it felt real.
Here's the thing. We were just talking about that with Kenny Omega. Like, Eddie Kingston has that. He might not have 5-star matches. He might just be a bruiser and a brawler who just wants to fight you. But look, he's talking me into a lot more storylines and a lot more than anybody else really in that company. They need that. Wrestling needs that as a whole.
He connects, and I think that's what it is when Eddie Kingston comes on your screen. And all he does is start talking, because he talks with a passion. And especially I think like when his NWA run on NWA Power, did you guys watch that?
Yes.
Like I was a big fan of NWA Power before like the pandemic hit. I thought, oh man, you're giving me studio wrestling? Like I haven't seen this in ages. And the guys that were on it at the time, like LA Knight, now in NXT, and Eli Drake, and Eddie Kingston was on the show, and he gives a promo about Homicide that was like so compelling within 3 minutes, man, where he's like, this man saved my life. And it was just like, I'm invested. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't even follow this program initially. I wasn't really like into it. And now all of a sudden Eddie Kingston gave that promo about Homicide and how like Homicide was this big part of his life and everything. And it was like, whoa. Like I was showing it to all my friends that didn't watch wrestling, and they were like, who is this guy? Like I haven't seen a guy talk like that since like the Stone Cold time period. Because I feel like Eddie's just that kind of guy that you believe it when he talks, you know? And a lot of guys don't have that. You know, Cody Rhodes ended racism with his big promo there. And you certainly didn't believe that, you know? Like, but when Eddie Kingston gets on your screen.
I didn't believe he said that.
It. Oh, man, that promo. That was another one where you showed all your friends for an entirely different reason.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It was like, did you see this? You know, like Cody. He's interesting. You know what I mean? He's an interesting figure in the pro wrestling landscape.
Yeah, and I do want to say and bring up, since it's one of the probably hottest topics in the past week, is the debut of, Malachi Black now as former Aleister Black. I mean, for that company, now granted it connects with Cody Rhodes because he comes out, he knocks down Arn, and then Cody comes in for, I guess, what was trying to be the save, and he knocks out Cody. So now his first feud is with the guy who's only had 2 losses in the entire run of AEW so far. Is that really how you want him to start?
I wonder how that's going to go. You know, like it is that kind of predictability that the WWE, they're as predictable as WWE sometimes, I feel like.
Cody,
you know,
when it comes to Cody, he can't help himself. Oh, we just got a new toy from WWE. I have to show that I'm better than that product and beat them.
I have to show them I'm a Class A champion. I should have held the belt. You know what I mean? Is kind of this.
Look, I beat all your guys.
Cody Rhodes is such a picture-perfect example of entitlement, you know? Like he's Dusty Rhodes' son, and he feels as though he should be, you know, this guy. And I think that's kind of like you got Tony Khan, who's like running that ship on cocaine or Adderall or whatever. You know, those promos, like you shouldn't even be letting him on television. You know, like next week, you're gonna have a promo next week, and it's like, dude, you're just you're a rich guy playing with your action figures, and it's this you got the Bucks, and then you have Omega, and then you have Kenny, I mean Cody, and you have almost like all these different creative directions going on. So you have your Bucks segment, and the Bucks segment happens to be with Omega at the time period, so you're always going to get that, and you're always going to get the Cody segment. And then inevitably we're going to get Brandy Rhodes rammed back down our throats again because, you know, she's the boss's wife and stuff. And there's these kind of predictability things about AEW that kind of like, man, like you guys aren't necessarily getting it right over there either, you know, when it comes to like both products, you know, like you watch it and Orange Cassidy interested me because Orange Cassidy interested the kids in my house. And that was the first time I seen kids interested in wrestling in ages. And what did Orange Cassidy doesn't even do anything. And it's that kind of apathy that I think kids of our, like we're older, we don't get it. And I think the younger kids they love that kind of character. And it seemed like they were giving him that push into, like, you know, with Jericho. A couple months back, it seemed like Orange Cassidy was getting the main event push, and then all of a sudden he's back down to the mid card again. And it was like, ooh, I guess you guys don't really know what you guys are doing over there either. It seems like, even though you were supposed to be the superior wrestling program or wrestling the way it was always meant to be, and it's largely WWE light.
Oh, it is, because if they were any different, because if the match is going on and the person is getting that like reaction from the crowd, you have the power to change that result. Like if Orange Cassidy goes over in that title match where the crowd was white hot for him,
White hot.
you're looking at a career-defining win and a change in shift in wrestling.
Absolutely.
Potentially. If you pull the plug right there, or if you let it go and you actually go for it in that moment, you could change the landscape for your company or all of wrestling. You just never know. And you could do all your studies and all you want, but I mean, a live reaction is like no other. You have
right. It beats nothing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like there's nothing like it. There's nothing like a crowd that, you know, reacts.
Yeah, and I feel like they're more wrestling in general is more for the planned moments. Yeah, we'll give you our planned moments. There is no surprise moment when the crowd is so into it, but you kind of know going into it, you're like they're never going to do it, but they get you to the point of where you second guess yourself.
Right, you believe it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, you believe
Right.
it. Like they never
Right.
pull the trigger on that one.
Right, you believe it. Right, and they never pulled the trigger on that one. Right.
Nobody out. No mainstream wrestling does that anymore. They don't pull the
No.
trigger when you want it the most.
Or they do it too soon.
Yeah. Or
Yeah.
they don't, or they
Like-
wait
like-
too long.
or they wait too long, or they do too. Like I can remember being a little frustrated with like when like Punk was leaving and everything, and he had done the pipe bomb and stuff like that, and wrestling was white hot. I felt like at that time, you know, that kind of pipe bomb really put a light on the product, and they had a real golden opportunity for him to kind of, you know, they should have negotiated with a smaller company and kept Punk away for just a little bit longer, you know what I mean? So this way we could all really believe it, you know what I mean? We are talking about a company that did try to sell us Vince McMahon blowing up in a limousine. You know what I mean? So like,
True.
give us the opportunity to believe it, and we will, because we want to. And that's the thing about wrestling, is those magical moments where it blurs reality and you're like, wait a second, is this real? You know, like those Daniel Bryan and The Miz on that Talking Smack promo.
Yes.
Where The Miz goes bananas. And
Yes.
you're like, oh, is this real? You know, and that's wrestling with Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart and Sunny Days and stuff like that. You're watching it and you're like, whoa, you know, and the line gets blurred. And I think as older wrestling fans, I know that that's a big thrill.
Mm-hmm.
That's something I really love myself. I love when I get surprised. A couple months ago at a GCW show, Joey Janela wrestled RSP, and Chris Dickinson came out, and we all thought Chris Dickinson was going to help Joey Janela, and then he screwed him, and we all went berserk, and it was like I felt like I was 12. You know what I mean? I couldn't believe what I just saw, because I didn't see that coming a mile away. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I feel like that's what we watch the product. That's what we watch wrestling for, is that moment of, you know, of the yes, you know, like those moments. You know?
Yeah.
So they had us at NXT TakeOver Philly with the Andrade and Gargano match, where if they would have pulled the trigger on Gargano there, could have completely changed the trajectory of his career too.
Absolutely.
Because he'd come up short so many times, and he was running that angle, and it was like the perfect peak, and they just didn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Do it.
And that crowd was lightning.
Yeah, it was.
It's mind-boggling in a way. It's like it's weirdly, it's almost like the WWE is largely run on self-sabotage. You know, like that's how they've been operating for like the last like largely 20 years. Daniel Bryan's a great example of it. You know, like organically getting over, you know, the yes movement and everything, but let's squash that because we want to push Roman Reigns. You know? And it's like this little guy with concussions. Nah, we got this beautiful Adonis, Roman Reigns, you know, and it's kind of that, like, did you guys go to that Royal Rumble where Daniel Bryan got bumped out and then even The Rock couldn't save the day?
No, we did not. No.
Yeah, where The Rock like comes down and tries to give Roman the rub.
That was brutal to watch.
Oh, it's terrible, because once Daniel Bryan got bumped out, the crowd wasn't into it anymore.
No, that killed it.
Gave us Roman, which we were already against to begin with, and it just became brutal. And it's so, they don't listen to the fans anymore, is what it feels like. And I think in the Hogan era they did, In the Stone Cold era, they certainly did, and they grew with the audience.
Yeah.
In that sense of they decided to bring the product back, try to get the kids, and they're not doing that. So why don't you just give us what we want? Is what it feels like.
They're still they're not doing that, but they're trying to appease us by bringing back part-timers and people that the nostalgia acts, and they're like, all right, we'll keep them at bay because they'll get to see some of their favorites from when they were teenagers. But we're not going to give them that feeling that they got when they were teenagers. They're just going to get these nostalgia acts.
Right.
When we could be reliving with the current product how we felt back then.
It's so dependent. They're very dependent. Like, we got to dust off The Undertaker every year. We got to, let's bring Edge, let's, and AEW is largely guilty with it. Let's bring in Christian, you know what I mean? Let's bring in Malachi Black. These are just guys that are getting fired from the other company and coming over here. And Mark Henry and Paul White and stuff like that. It's just, hey, this is old WWE talent over here, and that was always like what WCW was,
and TNA.
I just want the John Cena heel run that we all deserve. All these years, I want the Hulk Hogan NWO type John Cena heel run that we all deserve.
We did earn that.
That's how after years and years of Superman shit. Yeah.
10 years of Super Cena. We deserve it.
We totally deserve bad guy Cena. Maybe one day, wrestling's fickle is how I look at it. And it's always real cynical. And maybe it'll come back. Maybe it'll have a big bump, when the old man dies or the company gets sold or who knows.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I think with the live crowds coming back, I think wrestling, well, at least the mainstream wrestling, mostly because we get to watch that on a weekly basis, will hopefully get a lot better because they can't control that. And they're going to be forced to make changes. They're going to be forced to do things. So I think that'll hopefully help anyway.
Right, but if you want a great wrestling experience, it's the indies.
Yes.
For sure.
Yep,
it's
absolutely.
Hands down. You want to go, I try to explain that to people at my job. I mentioned the courts on America's Got Talent.
Mm-hmm.
I work at the courts. This is the funniest line. This is the one line they all laughed at.
Yes, yeah.
When I told them my job.
Yeah.
And you try to explain to people that there's other wrestling other than WWE, and they don't even realize that. And it's oh yeah, there's independent. It's kind of weirdly the territories have kind of returned in a weird way, but on a much smaller scale.
Yes.
But,
yeah.
When you got was a Pro Wrestling Guerrilla just announced the show, it's sold out. They announced nothing for it. They just said, hey, we're having a show and it's sold out. So over there they're doing things on that scale. Future Stars of Wrestling in Vegas and Black Label Pro and all the indies, ICW up in New York and everything. Beyond. Can't Believe all those guys. Everything's kind of, these small little, indie territories have popped back up. And that's really neat to see in a kind of weird way that wrestling is figuring out a way to survive.
Yes.
Throughout the pandemic.
Absolutely.
Figuring out a way to survive, whether it was no contact wrestling, which was born because of the pandemic and because I couldn't go to wrestling shows anymore. And it was I just wanted to keep that vibe of going to wrestling shows. I needed an excuse to drink on a Friday night. So I would drink and whip up a video, and that kind of kept that vibe going of going to an independent wrestling show and everything, where you would hoot and holler, and you have a blow-off at the end of the week or the end of the month, and you go and you yell and you chant, and this is awesome, and it's the best. I try to explain it it's nothing like anything other. And I took a friend to the backyard, GCW's backyard show, and it was her second wrestling show. And she was she posted pictures on her social medias and stuff, and that she was getting approached by her friends and family members, where were you on the 4th of July? And that's mighty interesting. Can I go to one of those with you? And it's
there you go.
that's how it works.
That's right. Yeah.
That's how you keep it alive.
Yeah. You hope.
I think that's what it's all about, just trying to keep it all alive, man, in one way or another, through isolation wrestling or just going to indie shows. It's just trying to keep the spirit of wrestling alive.
So, Duane, before we let you go, where can we find everything about you and, of course, about the Wrestling Federation?
My character's Instagram is Delicious Duane Douglas. That's on Instagram. It's triple DIWF on Twitter, and it's Delicious Duane Douglas on TikTok as well. And you can also follow Isolation Wrestling Federation on Instagram and ISO Wrestling Fed on Twitter. So It's Isolation Wrestling mainly on Instagram. Isolation Wrestling Federation on Instagram.
Okay.
So submit your videos, come up with your characters, come up with your own no-contact wrestler, join the fray, get off the bench, get in the squared screen, cut the promo you ever always wanted to, be the wrestler you've always wanted to. Fellas, thanks so much for having me tonight. I really, really appreciate it. I had a great time.
Thank you. Thank you for being on the show and taking the time to talk with us.
Awesome.
As you can see, I'm fading the black.
Fading the black. I saw it. I was like, oh, we're wrapping up now.
Yeah.
Yes, we only go by sundial here.
Yeah.
Sundial here.
So, Duane, thanks so much again, and hopefully we'll be talking to you soon.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
All right.